Hey, what's up, Emerge community? Tasha here, and today we are going to talk about how to pull your team out of a slump or create massive momentum in your business. And this week I was able to chat with one of my clients who achieved the highest rank in her company, and I thought that was just amazing and phenomenal and very, very exciting. And I was thinking about her past year and we were reflecting on it and just the ups and downs in the business. For me personally, I have seen ups and downs in our business as well. And so, this concept of how do you create momentum or how do you pull out of a slump is just, I think, a really, really important topic for anyone that is in business, whether it is network marketing or any other sort of business. And so today what I want to do is I want to share with you four different tips on how to break out of a slump or create massive momentum, which is the same thing. And so I read this quote, and now that I look at my notes, I did not get the name of the person, so I apologize, but it said, business comes in waves, you better learn how to surf. And I think it's important to remember that it's not if our business is going to go up and down, right? If there's going to be a slow time or a hard time, it's when is there going to be a slow time or a hard time? Because in all of the reading and research and chatting that I've done with amazing leaders, it's not ever perfect. It's not ever consistent. It doesn't actually go that way. It consistently will go up and down. And so the only commonality that I have found amongst great leaders is bouncing back from a devastating setback, losing all momentum, and then having to rebuild it from scratch. And so if you are there in your network marketing business and you are thinking, gosh, I I've lost momentum, maybe I should quit. That's the moment where it separates the great leaders from those who don't make it, is that the great leaders understand that losing momentum is just part of the process, and they just become really, really intentional about pulling out of the slump or gaining momentum again. So I have these four tips for you, and so here we go. Number one, decide not to be a chump. So we have to do a major gut check in the middle of a challenging time in our business, or if we're going to do a push and trying to create massive momentum. And so the number one thing is we have to actually decide. We can't just go, hey, we'll see how this goes. We have to decide, I'm not going to be a chump. And I think it's always good, and we'll talk about support later. But I will tell you this kind of a funny story that has now turned into its own little movement. And so this summer I was, sitting waiting for a doctor's appointment. And I was, feeling like super frustrated and low, and, when was I going to be able to gain momentum again, and feeling really frustrated. And so I sent a text to Karen, who is in charge of all of our leader development here at Emerge, and I was like, and I was being all vulnerable, right? Because I don't tend to be that emotional, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think today is going to be the day that I cry. And she responded, don't be a crybaby, you're a ducking winner. And she didn't say ducking, but for the purposes of our conversation here, and it jarred me, and I was like, hey, that's right. I need to decide right now, am I going to be a crybaby, right? Am I going to stay in that space, or am I going to remember that I'm a winner? And so the number one tip is to decide that you're going to be a winner. Decide not that the slump isn't going to overtake you. Decide that you will create the momentum, because it's going to take a lot of commitment. The second tip here is to execute the basics. New and shiny objects will not pull you out of the slump. The basics and your core competencies will bring you out of the slump. So when I go into a state of stress, I try to maximize every small thing. I'll go out and learn a new thing, thinking that that's going to be the thing that is going to help me to do better. But that's typically not what pulls you out of a slump or creates momentum. It's the repetition and the massive amount of action within your core competency. And what was really cool the other day is one of my clients turned one of my questions around at me. What have you been doing as a leader? But then I asked my team, what did we do as a team? And what came back time and time again was that instead of going after something that was shiny or some maximization tool or a new idea, what we did was that we focused on our core competency. It was our ability to develop leaders, build relationships, and provide the best coaching in the industry, or at least we're striving to be that. And so knowing that what is the thing that we really are the best at, and spending more time there instead of going after shiny things that we would have to learn, and then be poor. Like, here's how this works. If you pick a new thing, you have to go through the stages of learning. So 0 is never tried it. 1 is I tried and stink, or I'm just beginning. Number 2 rating is I'm good at it. And number 3 is I'm a rock star. And you have to go through 0, 1, 2 before you get to 3. And so I think what a lot of people do if they're trying to break out of a slump, now, if you don't know the basics, that's different. But we try to pick this shiny object to pull us out of the slump. But the problem is we have to go through all the processes. There are things that you are already a 2 or a 3, a rock star, or good at. And if you did more of those, it will help you to pull out of the slump. So number 2 is execute the basics. There are 3 areas in network marketing to focus on. How many appointments are you doing, whether they're new appointments, customer retention appointments, recruiting appointments, coaching calls? How many new appointments? How many referrals are you getting? And are your outlines tight? And that's it. Those are the basics in a high-performing sales conversation, right? Are you meeting with someone? Are you generating leads? And are your outlines good and customer-centric? And those are the basics to focus on, and then you just have to put a lot of energy. What's cool is that most people don't need a ton of learning around these things. It doesn't take a ton of brain power, it just takes a lot of action. Number three tip to get out of a slump or create massive momentum is to get back on purpose. When you are at a low point in your business, the numbers are really discouraging and can cause you to get in your head. One of the first things that my business coach taught me was that impact always comes before income. You have to provide value before the marketplace gives you dollars. And so providing value comes first. Business is about helping people first and foremost. Now, do you have to look at your numbers? Yes, maybe once a week, maybe a couple times a month. I don't want you to go all the way to the end of the spectrum and not look at your numbers, because you are in fact in business. So see number 1, decide not to be a chump. However, on a day-to-day basis, the numbers are typically not emotionally healthy. And so instead, on a daily basis, I'm going to encourage you to focus on the people that you are impacting with your business. The impact journal is so powerful to pull you out of a slump. And so what I recommend my clients do, what I do for myself when I'm starting to feel like I'm in a little bit of a funk, is create an impact journal, which is just writing down 5 people I impacted through my business activities on a daily basis. For me, if I think about yesterday, it could be I graduated a recruiting group and I wrote down all of their transformations. Well, gosh, that was already 8. Then I did a webinar and there were people on there that were super impacted. There were 32 people on there. That's 32 people that I positively impacted, not including the replay. I had 2 coaching calls with 2 of my coaches and they were deeply impacted as well. And all of that is going to create income. About a month ago, I started in our team group, Impact Every Day, and our enrollments have since doubled into Direct Sales Foundation. And I don't think that that's a coincidence, because when we provide massive value, people start giving us dollars. And so we need to get back on purpose. We need to remember that the core function of business is to create customers and to add value to people's lives. And they exchange that value that we provide them for money. And so we have to start by adding value. Whatever you focus on is what will replicate. And so if you focus on impact, that will duplicate and it will decrease your stress levels. I think the biggest added bonus is you'll be reminded how much you love your business, which also creates momentum and gets you out of a slump. Number 4 is get support. When you are trying to bring your business back or create that massive momentum, it's going to be a lot of hard work, and you're going to be pouring out onto a lot of people, pouring out onto the people you lead, pouring out onto your customers, and what can happen is your cup can be empty. And so if you're trying to pull out of a slump or create massive momentum, make sure that you have a strong support system. Who is your community? Your emotions are going to be up and down. And so my question for you is, whose job is it? Not who could be there for you, but whose responsibility is it to make sure to remind you that you are a winner, that you are not a chump, that you can do this, that every single leader goes through ups and downs. These truths are so important. And where is your community that's going to remind you as you go through the ups and downs, right? When you go through the up, who is your community? I'm so grateful to my client that asked this. It says, what did you do as a leader to help your team be successful? And when I was asked that question, it brings all of that into consciousness so I know what behaviors to repeat. But also, when I'm not doing so well, who's the person that's going to remind me of my accomplishments, that's going to remind me of everything I've done? I was chatting with one of my personal clients the other day. She's kind of going through a pretty difficult time in life. That's an understatement. And feeling like with all of her responsibilities, her business wasn't growing at quite the rate that she would like. And so I had to take a step back and say, well, let's just look at the last 3 months and what you have accomplished. And because on every few weeks I would ask her about her wins, I was able to spout off all of her accomplishments in the past 3 months. And she started crying. And so, yes, I know I have a reputation for making people cry, but it's not usually for the reasons that you think. And she was just like, wow, I thought I was failing, but really I have accomplished so much, because she's trying to create massive momentum. And when it doesn't go according to exactly perfect plan, you need someone to remind you of all of your accomplishments and that you are awesome, or when there's a setback. And so, who is your community? Let me just do a quick recap for you. So if you need to move out of a slump or create momentum, number 1, decide not to be a chump. Number 2, execute the basics. Number 3, get back on purpose. Number 4, get support. If you are at this point in the video or on the podcast, just leave a comment. What is one takeaway that you had from this particular conversation today? If you are on the podcast, I'm just going to ask you to share this with someone who needs it. And that's it for me today. I hope you guys all have an awesome, awesome day.